Welcome to my channel. This is Hot Mess and Hot Glue. My name is Lynn. Let's have some fun. Today we're doing She Did What with some Dollar Tree items. You've got them listed here. We got all 6 of these items are items that all 6 of us ladies have to use. Our gracious host is Shantelle over at Crafty Hints, and she came up with this fun idea where each of us would pick an item and then we all had to use that item in one way or another to craft with and create. So as you can see here, the first item I chose to work with was chalkboards, and I honestly couldn't decide if I was going to do the large chalkboards or the school-sized chalkboard, but when I got the idea to kind of try to make a tiered tray out of them, then I just decided it was clearly best to use the smaller ones. Now, one thing that I'm really loving about Dollar Tree are these wood like slats and shapes that they're getting in, and it just really helps keep things really just easy to duplicate and things like that. So with this one, I'm just marking the one stick I was able to use for both sides. So instead of having to use 2 of their $1 sticks for legs, I only needed the one. So once I kind of figured out where I wanted to put them, I'm going to use the tumbling tower blocks to act as the support for the chalkboards to rest on. And I pretty much immediately realized that just hot glue, even though I'm a huge fan of my hot glue and I believe that it's very strong, I did want to go back through with my staple gun and just kind of add a couple staples on both the front and the back portions of those, just to give them a little bit more stability. Now, I'm not going to be putting anything ridiculously heavy on these. However, I want them to be functional. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to take the time to make something like this and then not be able to use it. So I made the adjustments. I went through and I added wood glue and hot glue to both of the legs. Once I got the kind of stability, I don't know, they're not even stability, they're just kind of like shelf, I don't know what you would call these. It's late, guys. I apologize. Once I got those on there, I decided I wanted everything to be black, so I went through, I used the chalkboard paint by Folk Art. I really like the chalkboard paint. Now, I went with it because if I wanted to use the kind of shelves to decorate with or to draw on, or I thought it might even be fun to use in a small coffee bar, put some jars on there. You can kind of mark with your chalk if you want hot chocolate or cocoa, or those are the exact same thing, or coffee, whatever it is that you're going to put inside the little jars. I thought this would be kind of a fun little way to display them. So to not remove the chalkboard effect of these chalkboards, that was the main reason that I went with the chalkboard paint as opposed to just using my typical Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. Now, stickers was another item, and even though this is considered a DIY sticker, I wasn't 100% positive if that really fell under the criteria. Regardless though, I was going to use these anyway. I just kind of thought it was interesting when I picked them up that they're DIY stickers. So I picked off the faces that I wanted. I wasn't a huge fan of the sugar skulls, and I also did not want to use the purple glitter. So I flipped those ones over. I removed the sticky portion. Then I went through and using Waverly, antique wax, I gave these skulls a stained appearance. Once they were stained and dried, and actually it was while they were drying, I found these really cool, I want to say they were like garden stake, they're like fence markers that you can put in the ground, but you got 2 of them for $1. And I really liked the detail on the top, and I thought that if I grabbed 2 sets of 2, that I would be able to utilize the top portion of it as kind of a design feature and give it kind of that Halloween sort of almost like gothic appearance to the tier tray, so it's not as plain. It was about the skull point when I was putting all this together that I decided we're just gonna go Halloween theme. So all I did was use my tin snips. I'll make sure to have all of the items that I use as far as my tools and all of the fun little gadgets that I have. I will put those down in my description box with the link so that all you have to do is click on it and it'll take you straight to the Amazon link if you're interested in getting some of these yourself. Now again, you know I can't live without my Surebonder detailed tip, and it makes it so much easier to get around that fine detailed edge of these. And I was having a hard time keeping them really nice and tight, so I just wrapped each one of these around with a little bit of painter's tape to kind of give it a little bit of tension while they dried. Once it was dry, you can see they're clearly black already. However, you know, it was an obvious fake plastic black, and so going back in with my chalkboard paint, I decided to give them a uniform appearance in its paint color. I didn't want the chalkboard paint to kind of have one appearance and then have this clearly plastic piece sitting on top of the tier tray. In order to give this little finial, I guess we can call it, just a little bit more surface area to grab a hold of, I had these half round beads that fit almost perfectly inside the areas where like the dowel part used to be. So once I got those hot glued in there, I just went through and added a little bit more paint because I didn't want that to stand out too much. I then used both my hot glue and wood glue to get this to stick on top of the tiered tray. Now in one area I wasn't very careful as far as how much wood glue I used, and you can actually see when I flip it over that I didn't see it and it was oozing out, and you can just kind of see the color difference. So since it was dry, I just went back through with my paint and I just kind of hid that little mistake there. Now I do go through and I hot glue these skulls on there because I didn't trust the sticky back to be good enough. I just, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just didn't show gluing those ones on there. I put two on the side and kind of put them crooked, and then I put two on the front, and this way when it was facing forward there was just that little added detail. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. I do not have it decorated. I wanted to just show you the tier tray itself. I really like this. I think it's super cute. I kind of fiddled around with different items on top to see how much it can withstand, but you know, I'll keep the heavier stuff on the bottom. But I really like this and I'm excited to use it throughout the Halloween season. Now we get to check chalkboard off of our list. We have now officially used that one and we're going to move on to the next one. I'm sure you'll be able to guess what that one is. Now, I do not use yarn very often. I don't know, it's just not one of the supplies that I'm the most versatile with. So I took the easy way out. I grabbed this cute little pumpkin. I used my paint stick to create just a larger hole in the middle of the pumpkin. And then I had this, just a plastic threading needle. It came with some beads that I had gotten a while ago, but it works really good if you're going to use something larger like yarn or a really thick like twine or macrame cord even. And so I just kind of sew it. That's not even the terminology. I'm threading it through the top and down the bottom, and really all I'm doing is using this to kind of outline the ribs of the pumpkin themselves. I did use a chenille yarn that's so soft and so pretty, and I didn't make the hole large enough because I was really liking the way that this was coming out, and I had wished that I had made the hole bigger so that I could continue to thread it through the top and the bottom, because I really think it would have been adorable if I had been able to cover the entire pumpkin in this yarn. But again, I just didn't plan ahead well enough and didn't make that hole big enough. Now I had this like spare pumpkin pick, and so all I'm doing is using a piece of the stick that it's on to create a stem. Easy peasy. This little guy, he's so cute, and I think he's a little understated, but at the same time, I liked the texture. So there we go. We've got chalkboard and yarn off our list. We're gonna move on down to the placemat. Now, that was a little bit more difficult. I'll be honest, it was a little bit more difficult. And this is the item that I kind of just forgot about. And so this was a placemat that I had on hand, and when I looked at it, I knew that I loved that wood grain effect, and I thought that it would be really fun to make a set of coasters. So I used the shape of the wood pumpkin form, cut out 4 pumpkins on the placemat, and then I'm going to use a cork backing to create just a soft backing so that I can have these on the kitchen table without, you know, them sliding around. I mean, if it's just the placemat, it still might work, but I still didn't want it to slide around. Now, I did play around with one of them with the idea of putting the placemat onto the wood form and then sandwiching the wood form between the placemat and the cork. And I didn't love that. So I did not keep that as a workable idea. I just didn't like it. It wasn't something that I would use. And so I have the leftover kind of orange pumpkin there. Now, coming to trim this, I noticed that my little rotary cutter from the Dollar Tree trimmed it the best. However, the sticky cork really got lodged inside there. And so I wouldn't recommend using that to cut it, but here it is. I really think it's an adorable little coaster. Now, with the one that I didn't like that I had sandwiched, I did just try to, you know, decorate it up a little bit and not completely make it a waste. So we've got 3 out of our 6 supplies down, and we're just gonna keep moving forward. Now we have foam trays, which I know seem awfully strange. This is actually the supply that I picked, and going into this, I stared at this foam tray for so long, and then I put it aside, then I'd move on, then I put it aside, and then I just decided, you know what, it's a tray, why not just keep playing on that? So I painted the entire thing black, again using the chalkboard because of that same uniform finish and, you know, continuity of the color. I wanted to use the same paint throughout all the projects. I just wanted to create kind of like an inner portion of the quote-unquote tray that we're making. And so I definitely didn't want to use too much hot glue on this, and I didn't trust myself with using the right amount of Mod Podge on this either, and I don't know how Mod Podge works on styrofoam. I've never done it, so I honestly just kind of went the safe route, and even though it is typically my preferred route, it was still the safer way to proceed with connecting these two. Now, I still didn't know how I was going to decorate this, and I knew I needed to use stickers, and I wasn't quite sure if I was satisfied with the skulls being counted as stickers, and I remembered I had this really cool shape, and once I saw that, I realized that if I painted them black and I used them as the surround to kind of hide that junction between the foam and the paper, this could give it a really nice dimensional look. And I ended up liking it a lot more than I had anticipated. I kind of was just like, well, I need to use stickers. This is looking kind of plain. Once I put them on there, it really added not just a texture and a depth to it, but it gave it this like gothic appearance, almost like lace. And I just fell in love with it. I really loved the addition of this. And so the first time around I didn't paint enough. And so once I got them all painted and connected, I'm still looking at the tray and it was just, I mean, that's not enough, you know, it wasn't enough. I wasn't pleased with it. And so I just kind of fiddled around in my stash to see what I had. And what I have these kind of random tracing paper projects that, you know, if I come across something and I like the font, I'll trace it and I just set it aside. Now, I had these really cool napkins that I got for $1 at Walmart, and I just really liked them. So obviously I'm cutting out one of the skulls and we're just going to kind of just do almost like a decoupage. Now, so much Mod Podge squeezed out, and I was able to kind of hide that just by having this sped up a little bit. Now, I did choose to do the Mod Podge on that part. It did not bubble. It all came out perfectly fine. Now, it was still missing something, and I was kind of just rummaging through my Halloween supplies, and I came across this chain. And it's not a chain, I'm sorry, these are handcuffs. And when I looked at the individual handcuffs, when you separate those two, those look like handles. And that just was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely what this needs. Now, once they were connected, I mean, you can see this has a very, it's got more of like, I don't want to say like galvanized, but it's, you know, it has a faux metal finish to it. So I knew that I was going to still have to do a little bit more work on the tray itself. So using a brushed silver paint that I have from Plaid that actually is part of a huge box of goodies that they sent me, I started dry brushing this on, and I realized, okay, I really can't go with the quote unquote dry brush technique where you're just kind of barely dampening the brush and going over it. I was going to have to be much more heavy handed and kind of do an all over coat with this brushed silver. Then once that was dry, I would go back through and kind of do the reverse and then just dry brush the chalkboard paint back over it. This way it was a little bit more uniformed and it looked like it went with those handles as opposed to standing out and it being clearly two completely odd objects put together. And this is how it looks. I've got this adorable little display on here. I can show you how I made that little vase bottom in an upcoming video, but I just, you know, I think this is adorable. You have to be very gentle with it. I mean, you can't pick it up and toss it around. It is foam, but it was still, I think it's just an adorable addition. So with that project, now we have 2 additional things. So all we have left to work with now is this shower curtain. And this is another one. I opened this up and I sat with it and I sat with it and I would stop recording and I'd walk away and I'd come back and I'd sit at it and I'd stop recording. And finally it just kind of hit me. In front of my workspace, I have my little staging display area. And in that space currently, you'll actually be able to see it in some upcoming pictures. I have just like a Halloween backdrop. And it kind of dawned on me that maybe making a little backdrop for the tiered tray or doing some kind of banner for the tiered tray would be kind of cool. And so I decided to just cut a larger portion because I hadn't really married an idea if it was going to be a banner, if it was going to be a decorative backdrop. So I covered this thing in a ton of Mod Podge. I grabbed the same skull set of napkins that I was using before, and we just decoupage or I don't know if decoupage is different than Mod Podge or if it's a technique. I honestly just don't know. So I adhere this napkin to the shower curtain. I had a clear shower curtain and a white shower curtain, and the white one I knew was going to be perfect because it was going to give it more of an opaque background as opposed to it being almost too transparent. So I was glad that I picked up both to give me the option to work with. But in the end, I was really glad that I finally just made the cut onto the white shower curtain. Seeing all these strange items that we all chose to work with, I am really looking forward to clicking the playlist and seeing what everybody else made. Now, I will absolutely make sure to have the playlist linked in my description box, along with the direct channels to all of the creators that I got to work with. This was a ton of fun. I know I wasn't the most popular because I did pick those foam trays. However, I just can't wait to see what everybody's done with everything. So I decided on this to use this as a backdrop as opposed to doing a banner. So just to give this a little bit more stability, I just took some skewers, and as you can see here, I kind of framed them out, and then I attached the shower curtain with the napkins. Now, here is what it looks like once it's all together. I could only find one of my little flickering candles, but I think if you put 2 flickering candles on either side, that completely changes it. Just, I love it. I mean, it brings it to life. You know, it's not just some, you know, hanging piece of fabric. It's more of a purpose, and I really love the way that turned out. I'm really glad that I went that route with it. So here is that cute little tray with just some other random little decorations that I've made that I'll put together in a video for you guys here coming up. That way you can see some fun Halloween decor trays. And again, I just want to say thank you all for clicking on this video, but I really want to say thank you to our host, Shantelle. This was such a fun idea. Please make sure you go check out Jackie. Please make sure you check out Melissa. You definitely don't want to check out Miss Fabi over at Arrows DIY. And you know Connie's going to have some good stuff for you. So make sure you check the description box for all of the fun details. Now, just a reminder, because sometimes our mind likes to play tricks on us. You matter. You are loved. Your presence here on Earth makes a difference. And it makes a difference whether you see it or not, because we see it. So, thank you for being here. And thank you again, you guys, for stopping by, hanging out. And if you've made it this far, I just wanted to give you all a quick update. We are only 103 subscribers away from our 1,500 mark. We're getting ready to do a giveaway. Bye, guys.